Hello, my name is Hannah Lyons, and today I'll be discussing my research on the violence of January 6 riots. For my research, I focused on two independent variables: social media and hate groups. My thesis is that social media activity and involvement in hate groups may influence the likelihood of violent behavior among insurgents. Through my findings, though, I found that this may not be the case, and I'll further explain among this presentation. Okay. The theoretical frameworks for my research comes from several course readings that we discussed in class over political violence, socialization, and obviously social media. I chose social media as one of my independent variables because we had many class discussions about how social media can contribute to violence and conflict. And I found that many January 6 participants had posted on social media, specifically like Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and other platforms before or during the riot. I wanted to relate this to Patton's work on natural language processing and gang violence because he argues that online communication can reveal violent intentions and group behavior patterns. So I wanted to see if his theory was correct based on this data set. And the second independent variable I chose were hate groups because hate-based ideologies often encourage dehumanization and collective violence, and we saw that through Lufton and Dr. Velichkova's articles because I just wanted to connect them, especially with number one. Dr. Velichkova's article talks about socialization and political violence, and then Lufton's discuss genocide and violence and how we can develop through dynamics and institutional influence. And so, through these theories, suggest that belonging to an extremist group can shape individual identities and increase acceptance of violence. These claims by these academics helped me guide my research into whether social media use and hate group memberships were associated with violent behavior during the January 6 riots. Now, my methodology for my research was that I used both quantitative and qualitative methods. And for my quantitative analysis, I used correlation and crosstab analysis using Google Spreadsheets and from a January 6 data set that we all worked on. And I examined whether social media activity and hate group affiliation were related to violent or nonviolent behavior. And for my qualitative analysis, I use Atlas TI to identify recurring codes and themes from case documents and participant statements. I focused especially on themes related to remorse, online behavior, and extremist identity through hate groups. Using both methods allowed me to compare statistical trends with deeper personal narratives and behaviors found in case evidence. And my findings for social media first is that I found that the correlation between social media and activity and violence were negative, being a negative 0.10068383333. This finding was surprising because social media is often associated with radicalization and violent mobilization. However, one explanation may be that many people who posted online about January 6th weren't necessarily classified as violent, and some individuals may also have attended the protests or supported the movement online without directly engaging in quote-unquote what we identify as violent. In the crosstabs finding, which I placed in this table below, we see that those who did post on social media came out to 45%. However, only 14% were classified as violent, which is surprisingly low. And then we see that 53% were not posting on social media, and 28% of those who did not post on social media weren't even classified as violent. So they were the majority. The largest group were nonviolent participants, regardless of whether they posted on social media. Although many violent participants did use social media, the number did not support a strong relationship between posting online and committing violence. These findings didn't support Patton's argument that online behavior can strongly indicate violent actions. However, a counter-argument that I believe could be made is that social media still played a major role in organizing and spreading information about the events and the riots of January 6th, and monitoring online trends may still help identify possible threats, but it can't be an indicator alone to predict violence. Now, for my qualitative analysis in ALICE-TI, I found an important subtheme connecting to social media, which was lack of remorse. Out of 71 individuals who showed a lack of remorse, 43 had posted on social media, so the majority. This suggests that social media may not predict violence directly, but it may encourage public justification or celebration of the action. One participant in particular, named Rivera, remained inside the Capitol for approximately 20 minutes and later stated on a social media post that this was something we can tell our kids about, and further said that she would probably be going to jail and for what's been documented on January 6th. And another participant stated on Facebook Live, she said, direct, and I quote, God put me in the window, so I'm assuming God put me on CNN screaming like a madwoman. So hey, maybe I'm going to get arrested again, but I would get arrested and I would die for this country, so no regrets. I believe that these quotations show how social media became a platform for participants to justify their actions and express their pride for the events rather than their remorse. Now, for my second findings of hate groups, I saw that the correlation was also negative, being negative 0.12574056769. I originally expected hate groups to show a stronger positive relationship after reading Dr. Velichkova's article and Dr. Lufton's article. However, it does show that with violence, because extremist organizations often hatred, because also in the articles that we had read, it said that often being associated with extremist organizations often promote hatred and dehumanization and aggression towards others. However, I found something elsewhere in this data set. I found in my crosstab findings down below that those who did engage in a hate group were only 15% and 82% weren't. So, in those who were classified as violent and a part of a hate group was only 4%, which is very, very underwhelming, and 11% were non-violent. These findings suggest that hate group memberships alone were not a strong predictor of violence in the data set. The results did not strongly support Velichkova's argument that socialization into extremist ideologies directly lead to violence, neither Dr. Lifton's. However, instead, the findings may suggest that many individuals who engage with hate groups do not necessarily commit violent acts themselves. Now, qualitatively, I found that those associated with hate groups also posted a little bit on social media, but it wasn't very strong. Out of 94 people who posted on social media, only 16 were associated with hate groups. This suggests that social media participants during January 6th extended beyond organized extremist groups and included many just ordinary individuals who were politically motivated but not formally tied to a hate organization. Now, my overview of my findings showed that neither social media activity nor hate group affiliation had a strong statistical relationship with violence among January 6 participants. Both variables showed negative correlation. However, the qualitative evidence revealed more complicated patterns as social media appeared to play an important role in encouraging public expression of pride and lack of remorse. Hate groups may also influence beliefs and identity, even when they do not directly predict violent behaviors. Again, these findings partially challenge the theoretical framework of Patton, Velichkova, and Lufton. While online behavior and extremist socialization remain important, they may not directly cause violence in every case, which we see that in this research. Political violence appears to involve many overlapping factors beyond just social media and hate group affiliation. I will say one limitation of my research is that the data set may not capture the full understanding of the participant's motivation or whether the participant was actually violent or non-violent during these riots. And I believe that the implication of this research are important because they show that warning signs for political violence may be subtle and that social media and extremist ideologies may contribute to radicalization indirectly rather than serving as a predictor of violent behavior. And then these are the This is the bibliography for all of the articles I referenced. Thank you.